We all know that Florida matters in a big way in national elections. And now the governor's race there sets up as a clash of contrasts. Trump's picked Congressman Ron DeSantis on the GOP side, and now the Democratic side had a major upset last night. And Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum came out on top. Like I said, but it bears being said twice, he is the first African-American nominee for governor in that state. And he's already taking Trump on online. Mr. Mayor, welcome to Primetime.
Hey, good evening, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
How'd you do it?
Well, I tell you, 18 months of slow and steady retail politics all over this state. I went to red areas, blue areas, purple areas of this state, introduced myself, and asked the voters of the state of Florida for a chance.
No poll.
We organized.
No poll, Mr. Mayor, had you above, I think, like 19%, right up until people went into actually cast their votes. What did they get wrong, the polls?
Well, that's why I continuously told voters the only poll that matters is the one on Election Day. We worked feverishly at the ground level, trying to enlist and engage and organize voters all over this state, and it really paid off in a big way last night.
You are known for speaking truth to power. You took on the state as a mayor in Tallahassee. Now you're going at Trump directly on Twitter. Why poke the bear?
Well, in fairness, he poked me. We just wanted to let him know we're prepared to poke back.
It's a lot of poking.
President, it appears, gets off on intimidating and pushing people around, but I want him to know he's met his match. We're not here to be pushed around, not here in the state of Florida. And largely because the folks in this state are focused on the issues that matter. We want to make sure that folks get access to good health care, good education. We got algae blooms flowing out of the east and the west side of this state under the dereliction of Republican control of the state of Florida. Yet the governor has said, the president has said nothing about that to this governor. So we want him to know that we want him, if he wants to engage in this state, he needs to engage constructively, but divisive rhetoric will meet its match here.
And you have a new crop of voters from Puerto Rico who fled that forgotten island, and they learned very disturbing information about the death toll there and how it's not being met by any urgency by our leadership here. Is that something that you take on as governor?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, Florida is home to the largest concentration of Puerto Ricans outside of the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. We take very, very seriously what it means to be real friends and allies to our neighbors, and certainly for those who choose the state of Florida as home. We want to make sure that we treat them well. These are U.S. citizens. This president has been completely derelict in his responsibility to respond to that crisis. As governor of the state of Florida, it's my commitment to be a strong governor who supports not only the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, but Puerto Ricans and those in the larger Puerto Rican diaspora who are concerned about the recovery effort, which is taking far too long.
Now, you have a tone issue about what this race will be like between you and Congressman DeSantis. Here's what he said today.
He is an articulate spokesman for those far left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda.
Monkey this up. What does that mean to you?
Well, I'll try to be articulate, Chris, and simply say that kind of vitriol, and he's apparently given up the whistle. They've gone to the bullhorn with these kinds of tactics, but they're not going to work. We tried this one time. Donald Trump, this is a page from his playbook, basically tried to divide this country and my state. And I want them to know that Florida voters are smarter than that, that we are going to reject the politics of separation.
You don't agree with his campaign statement, Mr. Mayor, that he didn't mean that by it, if that's not the way it was meant. Here's the statement. Just so for the audience. He was obviously talking about Florida not making the wrong decision to embrace the socialist policies that Gillum espouses. To characterize it as anything else is absurd. You disagree?
Well, look, I don't know the phrase. Looking at the whole clip, I think he was clear about what he meant. He understood the dog whistle that he was blowing. And I understand that he intends to speak to a particular part of the base to incite them. Right. But the truth is I think there are a majority of us who disagree with that brand of politics.
Now, your big sell is going to be on your policies. Expensive. That's the word that might get attached to what you want to do. I know that it sounds well. I know that they're largely popular in principle. But how do you pay for Medicare for all in a state that is already looking at a potential big budget deficit. It'll break the bank. That's the criticism.
Yeah, well, the budget deficit in this state is going to be largely driven by the great big tax giveaways that Republicans have pursued nearly every legislative session that I can remember. We know that the fastest growing part of this state's budget is its health care costs. We also know that this governor failed to expand Medicaid for over 700,000 of the most medically needy people in this state, leaving $6 billion alone last year on the table, money that could have come from the federal government to help prop up that system. While here in the state of Florida, we have a nursing shortage. We can't find enough nurses to go into the field. And I think largely because we have failed to step up to that task. Listen, I believe, obviously at my level as governor, we have the ability to expand Medicaid with the work and cooperation of the legislature.
If the federal government will still give it to you, and if they keep doing what they're doing on the federal level, the transition costs for your state, I understand that there are studies that say over time, Medicare for all would reduce costs, have a healthier population, change copays. But the transition costs are crippling. That's why one of your supporters, Bernie Sanders, his home state tried it, and they couldn't get it done because the tax increases that are necessary, crippling.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I think if for Florida to move in that direction, we would have to do it as a confederation of states. We could not do it by ourselves solely here in the state of Florida because it would collapse the system. We would only attract the sickest of patients, and it wouldn't work. But could you imagine if we could team up with the states of New York, California, Florida, maybe even Texas, even Illinois, and other progressive thinking states and bargain on behalf of the citizens? Listen, people are terrified of getting sick. They're terrified of getting sick because if they get sick, they can't go to work. And if they can't go to work, they can't earn a wage. If they
Paycheck away from poverty
they can't pay
if they
their
get
bills.
sick. I understand it. The question is,
well, let me
how
tell
do you pay for
middle
the fix?
class, upper class? Yeah,
well, and that's
again,
a challenge
as
for
I said
you.
Before,
and I know it's a long discussion. I like that Confederacy of States. I haven't heard that before. I'll have to think through how that would work. You know, we have all these people who are experts who help us understand what different machinations will mean. I'm going to come back to you on that. I want to ask you if you can make a promise to your voters who are watching tonight. You've said in the past, I'm not worried about this FBI probe of Tallahassee City Hall. I'm not a target. We've heard that talk about not being a target. That may not be enough. Can you promise the voters of Florida they will learn nothing that is disqualifying about you from the FBI probe?
Yeah, well, I can absolutely confirm that to be the case because I know my actions. I've served for 15 years without so much of a stain on my reputation or name up until I decided to run for governor. But I will tell you this, the difference between Ron DeSantis and me on how we deal with the FBI is, in my case, we said, welcome, please, if there is something that is going on that is untoward, do whatever investigation is necessary. And if someone has done something wrong, we want to support you in making sure that they're held fully accountable. Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump have undermined the FBI. They've done everything that they could to cut them off at the knees, even going so far as to suggest something nefarious, a deep state even, when undermining the important work of the Bureau. That's not how we've approached it in our community. And I would also say that the city of Tallahassee is not under FBI investigation. There may be an individual, but certainly the city has been fully cooperative, and we're going to continue to be so until we get to the bottom of it.
All right, I wanted to put that question to you so the voters can hear it, and I'll make you a promise in return. We've reached out to Congressman DeSantis. This race is going to have a lot of attention on it. Florida matters in a lot of ways. You are welcome back on this show to discuss what matters to the citizens there. We'll do it more than once, I promise you that.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Chris.